What if the person who terrified you, the one who had total power over your life, became the person you wanted to protect? What if, after days of fear, you found yourself hoping they would go free? This is not a thought experiment. This happened in 1973 in Stockholm, Sweden, and it has been happening ever since in homes, in relationships, in families, to millions of people who have no idea why they can't just leave. Stay with me, because what you're about to understand might change the way you see yourself or someone you love. On August 23rd, 1973, a man named Jan Erik Olsson walked into Credit Banken in central Stockholm and took four bank employees hostage at gunpoint. What followed was 6 days of captivity inside a bank vault. When it ended, when police finally moved in, the world expected four traumatized victims desperate for rescue. What they got instead was something no one had a language for. The hostages defended their captors. They refused to testify. They raised money for the kidnappers' legal defense. One of the women, Kristen Enmark, became emotionally attached to her captor and reportedly got engaged to him. Psychiatrist Niels Bayero, who had been consulting with the police during the crisis, coined a phrase to describe what he observed. He called it Stockholm Syndrome. But here's what most people miss. Bayero's term was not a diagnosis. It was an observation. And the behavior he described was not new. It had been happening throughout all of recorded human history. We just finally had a name for it. Here is what is actually happening inside the brain. When a person believes, truly believes, that their survival depends entirely on another person, the brain does not fight. It does not flee. It bonds. This is the brain's emergency attachment system, and it is one of the most powerful survival mechanisms our species has ever evolved. Think about it from an evolutionary standpoint. If you are captured, if escape is impossible, what gives you the best chance of staying alive? Fighting back leads to punishment. Resistance leads to pain. But showing deference, building rapport, making yourself human in the eyes of someone who controls you, that leads to small mercies. An extra piece of food, a blanket, a moment of kindness. And the brain, designed above all else to keep you alive, will do whatever it takes to generate those mercies. It will reframe your captor as a protector. It will find reasons to justify their behavior. It will construct feelings of gratitude from almost nothing. This is not stupidity. This is not weakness. This is your brain doing its job, under the most impossible circumstances imaginable. Research has identified four conditions that must exist simultaneously for Stockholm Syndrome to develop. First, the victim perceives a genuine, credible threat to their physical or psychological survival. Second, the captor shows small acts of perceived kindness, not generosity, not love, just the absence of harm, interpreted as care. Third, the victim is isolated from all other perspectives. No outside voices, no reality check, just the captor's worldview, on loop. And fourth, the victim believes that escape is impossible, or that attempting it would cost them more than staying. Now here is the part that should stop you cold. These four conditions do not only exist in bank vaults and hostage situations, they exist in bedrooms, in family homes, in religious communities, in high-control workplaces. Any environment where one person controls another person's sense of safety, where kindness is used as a reward and withdrawal is used as punishment, can produce this exact same neurological response. The brain doesn't know the difference between a hostage situation and an abusive relationship. It just knows. This person controls whether I am safe, so I will find a way to make them good. Before we go further, if this is already making you see something differently, do me one favor. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Because this channel goes deep into the psychology of survival, the patterns hiding inside your own mind that most people never stop to examine. The next video is going to continue this thread in a direction you will not expect. Now, back to the story. In abusive relationships, the pattern is so consistent it has its own name, the cycle of abuse. It begins with tension building, a slow tightening that the victim learns to read like weather. Then comes the incident, the explosion of control or harm, then reconciliation, apology, affection, promises. The captor becomes kind again. And then the calm, a period of normalcy that makes everything before it feel like a bad dream. And then it starts again. This cycle is not an accident. It is neurochemically identical to intermittent reinforcement. It is the same mechanism that makes slot machines so addictive. You cannot predict when the kindness will come. So your brain stays on alert, scanning, hoping, waiting. And when the kindness arrives, the dopamine hit is enormous. Not because the kindness is real, but because the uncertainty made it feel precious. Love and fear become fused together. Safety becomes associated with the person who is also the source of threat. And leaving, which from the outside looks like the obvious solution, feels from the inside not like escape. It feels like loss. It feels like abandoning the one person who has ever truly known you, even if that person was the one who made sure no one else could. If you have ever stayed somewhere you knew was hurting you, if you have ever defended someone to people who could clearly see what they were doing to you, if you have ever felt more afraid of leaving than of staying, you were not irrational. You were not weak. You were not broken. Your brain was running a program it has been running for thousands of years, a program designed to keep you alive at any cost. Understanding this is not an excuse for the harm that was done to you, but it is something more important than an excuse. It is the beginning of compassion. First, for yourself, and then, when you're ready, for every other person still running that same program, in silence alone, convinced they are the only one. If this video made you feel something, or made you understand something you couldn't name before, that is exactly what this channel is for. Every week we go inside the psychology of the human mind, the survival patterns, the invisible wounds, the behaviors no one ever explains. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this with one person who you think needs to hear it. Because the most powerful thing you can do for someone still stuck in that cycle is hand them the language to understand what is happening to them. The next video is already waiting for you. I'll see you there.